A war began on February 28, 2026. The United States and Israel struck Iran. Within hours, Iran's supreme leader was dead. The world watched the South. The world watched the West. Almost nobody was watching the North. And that may have been the point. Because just across Iran's northern border sits Azerbaijan, a country that supplies Israel with nearly half of its crude oil. And according to CNN, Israeli military and intelligence personnel were operating from southern Azerbaijan during the war. Azerbaijan denies it. Israel has said almost nothing. But 3 weeks into the war, Israeli aircraft struck Iran's northern naval force on the Caspian Sea. And suddenly, the map starts to make sense. This is the story of the Northern Front. Israel imports oil. And unlike many countries that depend on the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, Israel has another artery. Azerbaijani crude travels from Baku through the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline to the Turkish port of Ceyhan. From there, tankers carry it across the Mediterranean to Israel. At the height of the war, Azerbaijan was supplying roughly 46% of Israel's crude imports. The route is important for one simple reason. It runs north, away from the Strait of Hormuz, away from Iran's direct control. For Israel, Azerbaijan isn't just a friendly country. It is a critical energy supplier sitting directly on Iran's northern border. And that geography matters, because Azerbaijan and Israel have spent decades building a relationship that doesn't look like a traditional alliance. No mutual defense treaty. No NATO-style commitment. No promise that one country automatically goes to war for the other. Instead, the relationship is modular. Oil moves one way. Weapons, technology, and intelligence move the other. Diplomatic relations continue independently, and that flexibility allows Azerbaijan to cooperate deeply with Israel while maintaining its own relationship with Tehran. Then came the war. In June, CNN reported that Israeli military and intelligence personnel had been deployed in southern Azerbaijan. According to CNN sources, the deployment included elite military personnel, Air Force rescue capabilities, and intelligence officers. The initial mission was reportedly straightforward: recover Israeli personnel or aircraft if they were brought down over Iran. But according to the same reporting, the mission expanded. Intelligence collection, drone operations, and, according to sources cited by CNN, operations against targets inside Iran. Baku rejected the allegations as baseless. Israel did not publicly confirm the deployment. And one of the most serious allegations concerned Rahman Mokaddam, the head of the IRGC's Special Operations Division. CNN sources alleged that an operation that killed Mokaddam was launched from Azerbaijani territory. If true, that would mean something extraordinary. Israel would not simply have been using Azerbaijan as an energy partner. It would have been using the country as an operational platform directly beside Iran. But there was another event that made Azerbaijan's strategic importance impossible to ignore. March 18th, Israeli aircraft struck Bandar Anzali on Iran's Caspian coast. It was the first confirmed Israeli attack in northern Iran during the war. The target was Iran's Caspian naval force. A corvette was destroyed. 4 missile boats were destroyed. These vessels could not attack Israel directly from the Caspian Sea, but they were the force best positioned to threaten Azerbaijan's maritime infrastructure. And Azerbaijan's offshore energy infrastructure matters to Israel, because the same country whose oil was flowing south toward Israel was sitting directly across the Caspian from the Iranian naval force. Israel did not publicly say it was destroying those vessels to protect Azerbaijan's oil platforms. But the strategic effect was clear. The potential threat to Azerbaijan's offshore energy infrastructure had just been dramatically reduced. And that meant the artery feeding Israel's oil supply was safer. Then Iran sent its own warning. March 5th. One day after Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev signed a condolence book at Iran's embassy in Baku, drones crossed into Azerbaijan's Nakhchivan exclave. One struck near Nakhchivan airport. Another landed near a village and a school. Civilians were injured. Azerbaijan said the drones came from Iranian territory. Iran denied responsibility. But look at the geography. Nakhchivan sits directly on Iran's border, and it is connected to the rest of Azerbaijan through territory separated by Armenia. The targets were not major military installations. They were limited, low value. That makes the incident even more interesting, Because whether or not Tehran intended it as a direct warning, the message Baku received was obvious. Iran could reach across the border. President Aliyev called the attack terrorism. Azerbaijan summoned Iran's ambassador. Troops were moved toward the southern border. And Aliyev invoked the phrase, Iron Fist, the name associated with Azerbaijan's 2020 war in Karabakh. It was a deliberate historical reference. Azerbaijan was signaling that it would not simply absorb pressure indefinitely. But then something unexpected happened. The confrontation did not escalate into a new Azerbaijan-Iran war. The border reopened, humanitarian supplies moved toward Iran, and Baku continued balancing between two countries that were increasingly at war with each other. That is the real story. This is not a formal alliance. It doesn't need to be. Azerbaijan can cooperate with Israel on intelligence and security while maintaining diplomatic channels with Iran. It can supply Israel with oil while sending humanitarian assistance toward Iran. It can deepen military and economic ties with the West while protecting its own relationship with Moscow and Ankara. That is what makes the relationship so difficult to disrupt. It is modular. And now there is another piece being added to the architecture. Washington's Trip Corridor. The proposed route would connect Azerbaijan through Armenia toward Nakhchivan and Turkey, creating a new transportation and economic corridor across the South Caucasus. If it succeeds, Azerbaijan's importance grows again, not just as an energy supplier, but as a bridge between Central Asia, Turkey, and the West. And that creates a much bigger geopolitical question. What happens if Azerbaijan remains merely a partner? Probably very little. The current arrangement is useful precisely because nobody has to formalize it. But what happens if Azerbaijan becomes something more? A permanent intelligence platform, a logistics hub, a military access point, or a staging ground for operations against Iran? That would change the equation completely, because Iran can tolerate an Azerbaijani-Israeli relationship. What becomes much harder to tolerate is that relationship turning Azerbaijani territory into an operational platform directly beside Iran. And Tehran has already shown that it is willing to send a warning across that border. So there are three possible futures. First, Azerbaijan could formalize its relationship with Israel even further, potentially moving toward the Abraham Accords. That would deepen the partnership, but also increase the diplomatic pressure on Baku. Second, the most likely outcome. Nothing becomes formal. The relationship remains exactly what it has been for years. Oil flows, weapons and technology flow, intelligence cooperation continues, diplomacy stays flexible, and both sides keep their options open. Third, Iran could strike Azerbaijan again, but the next strike could be more direct. And if that happens, Baku may be forced to decide how much access it is willing to give Israel. Because there is a difference between being Israel's energy supplier and becoming a battlefield in Israel's war with Iran. That distinction may determine what happens next. The world spent the opening months of this war watching Iran's southern coast, watching Hormuz, watching the Gulf, watching the missiles over Israel. But one of the most strategically important pieces of the war was sitting quietly to the north. Azerbaijan, a country supplying Israel's oil, a country bordering Iran, a country balancing between Tehran, Jerusalem, Ankara, Moscow, and Washington. And possibly, according to reporting that Baku denies, a place from which Israeli operations were conducted against Iran. The Northern Front may never become a conventional battlefield. It doesn't have to, because sometimes the most important battlefield is the one that never officially exists. And that is the harsh truth.